Welcome to the TPA Breakout Groups session for learning about more information for the Teacher Performance Assessment, either the Cal TPA or the National Teacher Performance Assessment, the ED TPA. Tonight we'll be looking at local and state resources that you can access. We'll be looking at support strategies, and we'll be looking at levels of mentor support as you complete your Teacher Performance Assessment. So there are two teacher performance assessments that you can take. One is the Cal TPA and one is the ED TPA. The California TPA has two instructional cycles, Instructional Cycle 1 and Instructional Cycle 2. They can be submitted at the same time or at different times. And basically, Instructional Cycle 1, you are teaching one lesson, and in Instructional Cycle 2, you are teaching a series of lessons. The ED TPA, which is a national assessment, is a little bit different. There are three tasks. Task 1 is a planning task, Task 2 is instructing, and the final task is assessment. All three of those tasks have to be submitted at the same time. For the ED TPA, there's lots of national resources that are linked here, and you will have access to this slide deck so you can access these resources. edtpa.com is a great resource for finding lots of information about retakes. If you have to retake the ED TPA, it has lots of webinars if you're interested in learning about completing the ED TPA, also webinars for ED TPA retakes. In addition, there is a three-part series on the ED TPA assessment and support. There's a Part 1 orientation, a Part 2, which is a deeper dive into the constructs, and Part 3 is essential resources. There are also specific content webinars, world language and math, and there's also an Ed Specialist ED TPA webinar that you can access on edtpa.com. EdTPA also has an EdTPA 101 and a deep dive series. Again, you can register for these. They started about a month ago on Fridays at 9 o'clock in the morning. And the intended audience for these webinar series are faculty, instructors, supervisors, and mentors who support teacher candidates who are new to the EdTPA. They're not really meant for candidates completing the EdTPA, and those webinars are separate from these deep dive series. For Cal TPA, there's also resources, caltpa.com, that you can access. They're state resources because the Cal TPA is specific to California. There's also deep dive series into Cycle 1 and Cycle 2 for the deep dive on the Cal TPA, and those again can be accessed on the Cal TPA website. This just came out pretty recently in the PSD news for education preparation programs, and there are Academy Cycle 2 and Academy Cycle 1, and you can access those on YouTube. They're about an hour, maybe an hour and a half long. And if you go to YouTube and you type in Cal TPA playlist, a series of these cycles, deep dives into these cycles will appear. There's also local resources for both the ED TPA and the Cal TPA. For ED TPA, you can reach out to Kelly Daly at kdaly@sco.org for any resources for ED TPA. And North Coast is also offering Cal TPA support, and I will talk about that in 1 second. And here it is, 1 second later. So the North Coast School of Education is offering a series of Cal TPA support sessions. They're led by Autumn Wagner, and you can come to all of them or just one or two of them if you need to. They are intended to be a series, and also they are intended to provide some one-on-one support as you complete your Cal TPA. You can register for those sessions at ncsoe.org. Now let's talk a little bit about the levels of mentor support for the candidates as they complete their ED TPA or Cal TPA. So in terms of mentor support, again, we look at the after cycle. Mentors can review the handbooks and the assessment guides with the candidate. They can understand the content that the candidate might be teaching while they are completing their teacher performance assessment. They can help with the recording of the teacher's assessment. And also they can reflect and help look at the teacher performance assessment in terms of whether or not a student has been identified or any glaring errors. So some support strategies that mentors might want to begin working with their candidates prior to beginning the official teacher performance assessment is you can talk about the tasks and the scoring rubrics and any support documents. For the EdTPA, there's making good choices and understanding rubric level progression by looking at what is and is not expected in the teacher performance assessment. Mentors also can look at the lessons or the examples of teaching using the rubrics or support documents. So if a mentor observes a candidate, they can use the rubrics to support the candidate when they do the observation. And you can help the candidate find information about his or her students and what supports they might need if they're on an IEP or a 504 plan. Again, they can provide feedback regarding the planning and teaching and use rubrics, informative exercises if there's an observation. You can use the rubric language when you debrief your observations or your weekly meetings, and you can help your candidate get permission for the video that they are going to record. During the TPA, while the candidate is completing the TPA, you might suggest a timeline for completion of the TPA submission. You can answer clarifying questions and you can answer any probing questions that the candidate might have. You can't specifically tell the candidate what to write or what to record, but you can use in general prompting questions. In addition, you can provide references to relevant articles or sections of text to address questions about effective teaching strategies, and you can flag instances where maybe some identifying information still needs to be removed, such as a student's name or the school's name. With CalTPA and EdTPA, there really is more supports than unacceptable supports. So again, you can discuss the TPA and the scoring rubrics. You can discuss samples of previously completed portfolios. You can also discuss support documents, and that would be for EdTPA making good choices. You can again use rubric constructs and rubric language to debrief observations and ask probing questions and arrange for technical assistance. What is unacceptable means of support would be editing a candidate's official material. You can't do that. You can't offer critiques of the candidate's responses that provides specific alternate responses. So for example, you would say, oh, I wouldn't write this. Instead, I would write this. You can't do that. And also you can't upload the candidate's EdTPA responses for them. Again, this slide just talks about bullet points, what I just went over. So the North Coast School of Education has some exciting upcoming sessions for professional learning. We have equity and bias in teaching, the ILP tutorial, relationships and routines, supporting student wellness in the classroom. And these can all be found on the North Coast website at ncsoe.org. Thank you very much, and hopefully you learned a little bit about the teacher performance assessment. Again, you can contact Kelly Daly at kdaly@sco.org if you have any personal questions or need any feedback when it comes to starting or completing your teacher performance assessment. Thank you.